Everything that has a beginning has an end. What's going on, guys? This is Joshua, future filmmaker, now for these reviews with my final Matrix review until we do the Matrix Resurrections and the Matrix ranking. Coming into it now with the third and initially final film in this series of movies. And we are going to talk about my least favorite one, but I don't even think it's as bad as everyone says it is, and that is The Matrix Revolutions.
Can Zion be saved?
Tonight, the future of both worlds will be in your hands or in his. Everything that has a beginning has an end.
Rated R starts Wednesday, November 5th.
This came out 6 months after Reloaded on November 5th, 2003, 18 years ago. This was at the time the final film of the original trilogy. This is written and directed by the Wachowskis. Once again, stars the same cast of actors carried over from the first movie, and the new characters carried over from the second movie, with some more characters here in this one. Keanu Reeves, Carrie Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving, Jada Pinkett Smith, Monica Bellucci, Harold Perrineau, Mary Alice filling in for the Oracle, and we're going to talk about this one. The human city of Zion defends itself against the massive invasion of the machines as Neo fights to end the war at another front by going to the machine city while opposing the rogue Agent Smith, who wants to destroy both the real world and the Matrix. When it comes to the Matrix Revolutions, this at the time was the lowest grossing film in the trilogy. This made less money than Matrix Reloaded. Matrix Reloaded made $739.7 million, and it was the highest grossing R-rated movie until Deadpool came out. So, of course, people gave that movie a lot of money, even overseas. But you can tell when this was coming out that the Matrix was starting Reloaded, a lot of people weren't so happy with how Reloaded turned out that some people, they didn't even go return for the third movie. When I first saw this one on BET, when it came on BET Network, because the BET would play this and Reloaded. When I first saw this one in 2009, years ago, even when I had the 4 film set with just the 4 movies, including The Matrix, I liked the movie, but I was a little disappointed by it, and I questioned certain elements. Certain things didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. There were some decisions in the writing that I was not a fan of, and still am not a fan of. But over time, the many times I've watched this movie, and the more times I watch it, and the more times I hear people praise it, the more I've actually came around to it. Now, is this a step down from Matrix Reloaded and the first Matrix? Yes. Do I think this is the worst thing that's ever happened to cinema? Absolutely not. Do I think it's a very frustrating film? In some ways, yes. But do I feel satisfied enough with it? Absolutely. Absolutely. And while this is my least favorite of the trilogy, I'm going to tell you guys why I don't hate this movie as much as I do. And why I don't think this movie is deserving a lot of the hate that this movie has garnered over the 18 years syndrome. But there are things in this movie that I like. There are some things I'm pretty okay on. And then there's things in this movie I really don't like. So this is going to be a bit of a passionate review. A little bit. And I feel like the best thing to start off with is, obviously, I am going to go into the things I don't really love all that much. So this is going to be a little bit of negatives mixed and then positives. So I want to start off with the negatives first. Moving on into the big negatives of this movie, there are some big negatives that I need to address here. This movie definitely has some very huge problems when it comes to some of the writing decisions in this movie, how certain things are played out here. Now, like I said, I do appreciate this one for taking the risk as well. That is still very much positive that carries over into this movie. Now, the results I don't like in this movie, the symbolism metaphors in this movie, this is a big thing for me that I feel like are a bit, while it's there in the first two movies, it wasn't as in your face. This movie, because of what happens to Neo with his eyes getting blinded, of course, the symbolism isn't as heavy-handed, but I will say a lot of the symbolism in this movie is just way too on the nose at points. I get it. It is a metaphor because he is the Messiah that's supposed to save everyone, and the whole thing where he can feel the machines, and you have this whole golden light in the movie, which I will say right now that is a little bit too symbolic and a little bit too on the nose for me watching this. But at the same time, I get why it's there. However, the thing that makes it a negative is that it is just a little bit too on the nose, and I do wish it could have been a little bit more subtle to it. And I definitely do appreciate what they were trying to go for with the symbolism. I just feel like it did get a little bit too carried away with it. So it definitely does play into it a little bit, with it being a little overdone. The one scene with Agent Smith after he takes over the Oracle, which this is the one thing that does take me out of the movie a little bit, with him doing the Dr. Evil laugh. Just had him look at the camera and smile. You didn't really necessarily need the Dr. Evil laugh, because every time he starts laughing, I'm just basically laughing along with it. I didn't think that was necessary to do. I will say, for the script sometimes, while it is a decent enough screenplay, trying to tie everything up and wrap everything up in the way that the Wachowskis wanted to, without trying to focus on too much of stuff. And the script can be a little bit messy and a little bit clunky with some of the dialogue and some of the writing decisions at points. And I do kind of wish it was a little bit more up in some of the dialogue at times, because some of the dialogue in this movie is a little bit on the clunky side of things. But there were some still fun moments of dialogue that I actually like in the script. 20 minutes with Neo being stuck in the train station. It's a little slow to get through a little bit for a little while, until Morpheus, Trinity, and Syrup they actually go and get Neo out, which was one of my favorite scenes, because you do have Bruce Spence as the train man from Mad Max The Road Warrior. He does a lot of fun. He does what he has to do in his small part as a train man. I do like that aspect, of course. There is a lot of overabundance of characters, because compared to the last two movies, we're not in the Matrix as much, because this is basically the big battle movie of Zion. And You do find yourself wondering a little bit, should we care about these other characters that are not Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus? Because Trinity and Morpheus, they are off doing their own thing. Morpheus, he does play second fiddle to Niobe, helping her get back to Zion on the Hammer, which is the ship of Captain Roland, who's a bit of a dick, of course. So, I do wish Morpheus had a little bit more to do, considering the fact at the time this was the final chapter. But it's not like he's underutilized, because he is still used a lot to his great potential. He does help in the action scene with the upside down action scene, of course, and help Niobe, of course. But just a little overabundance of a few characters like Z and Shara, who are shooting at the Sentinels machines, and Captain Maifune, who just on point. He is one of the more under favorite characters of this series. Because not only he is just ready to die for his city, but he is willing to go down, not willing to go down while a fight, especially with him shooting the APUs. It's a nice reference to Toshio Mifune from Seven Samurai, so I do like that. You could have found a way to balance this Battle of Zion out a little, and the whole thing of Neo and Trinity working together trying to get to the machine stage. You could have intercutted that in between. Some dated CGI, of course. Some of it is not as much CGI in the as it was in the Broly Brawl fight with Neo and Smith, but when it gets to the certain point with Smith just trying to fix himself and do his whole Superman-like thing, that is a little bit funny. But my biggest negative when it does come to the Matrix Revolutions, this is the thing that I've always hated about this movie, even when I first watched it. Because we just had this happen in Reloaded. And I'm just gonna say it. The death of Trinity. Trinity is killed off again.
Seriously, what the fuck are you doing?
That's stupid! Use your common sense!
Oh, fuck off!
You know how much I sacrificed? What the hell?
Okay, I have never liked this when I first saw it, because we just went through this and Reloaded. And I'm just gonna say it. It's not only because I like Carrie-Anne Moss as an actress, and she's great in the role once again, but I also very much like the Trinity character. So she's in love with Neo. There's a lot of things to love about her. She's a badass. She's a fighter. She's willing to sacrifice herself, even for the greater good. But my problem when it comes to her dying again in this movie is we just went through this in the last movie. The second movie pretty much teased that she was gonna die and Reloaded for them and for her as a character. And this is a little rant and a pet peeve I've always had with this. Why would you have Neo go through all of the shit that he did at the end of the second movie to not only keep her alive, to try and save her as well and protect her from dying, only to just kill her off again in this movie?
You should be ashamed of yourself! No more jiggery-pokery!
Are not making one goddamn bit of sense.
You bastard!
Bad writing decision right there on the Wachowski's part.
You done fucked it up!
Granted, it's done with some respect and some dignity to Trinity, but I don't think it was really necessary for you to do this again. But still, you could have just had her do one of the three things. One, you could have had her live after the war ended with Neo dying and having her tell the tale of what happened, have her get back to Zion somehow.
Correct!
2, you could have had her enter in a coma, and the only way for Neo to truly save her is to do exactly what he does in the finale.
Obvious.
Or 3, this is just the obvious one since they just made love to each other in the last movie. Have them have a child together. Now, look, I get it. This is more of a Shakespearean love story, so in a lot of ways, Trinity had to die so that Neo would be able to sacrifice himself as he had nothing else to lose. But I still think you should have made the decision and had her live.
That's all you have to do!
Had a revelation at the end that Trinity was pregnant with her and Neo's child, and whichever side, whether he or she, would be the next chosen one. That is just a pet peeve to me that I just could not get into. Also, aside from the writing decisions, it is a pretty much bad thing about the movie with a lot of character storylines, with them being intertwined in this whole final battle, which I think is a little bit complicated, and I do wish it could have added a little bit extra, couple more minutes for that to kind of embrace itself out. So this whole thing with the Smith possessing Oracle thing, that could easily been the Alpha Smith, but again, this had to be done in order for the Oracle to help Neo with the beginning and end quote. But other than that, those are just some small little issues I do have with this movie that does kind of hurt the film on the rating I'm going to give it. Moving on into the mid side of things, like I said, going back to the mixed category are some of these other characters like Z and Chara and the Kid. They all have to play a big moment in this final battle to help Neo on his mission. And while I do like the performances as well, on one side, on the other side, I will say I do kind of feel like we should have added at least a bit more minutes to some of it, to where we could actually care about some of this stuff with them. Also, you have the little girl, Sati. Calculations are correct. That's who Priyanka Chopra is going to be playing in Resurrections, is Sati. I understand what they were doing with her, was her purpose. I don't mind that idea. It is a little cheesy and corny, philosophical elements that are, while still fun, I will say there is a little bit of philosophical elements that are a little too cookie cutter for the most part. And like I said, this movie, it did throw off a lot of people, and it disappointed them because they expected the humans to be free from the Matrix and force them to triumph defeat of the machines. So I think that's another thing that does play into a little bit of the mixed category, that most of the other humans should be free. But moving on into the things I do like, I still think that Revolutions is a very competently made film. It's still very competently made in what it set out to do. You can tell, of course, like I said, if you pay closer attention to the story in the last movie and in this movie, along with the Animatrix and the first movie, you come to realize that the machines aren't exactly the evil overlords that we thought they were. What the machines has done to the humans is pretty messed up, but as it turns out, humanity is much to blame for the war because the machines were treated like shit, and we tried to destroy them. But as a result of the war, the machines and humanity are locked in a codependent relationship and need each other to survive. So outright destroying the machines as a way to liberate humanity wasn't ever really an option at all. So if you think of it this way, when it comes to Smith and Neo in this last movie, Smith is the anti-Neo. His return is a result of the Matrix balancing itself out to the power of the One, which extends beyond the world. So if Neo is the One, then Smith is the Manny. Kind of like Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. Of course, I do get what they're going for here to make it go flow out. It is very competently made. I do still appreciate the risks that they still make with a lot of the stuff. With the fight was massively done when it comes to the Battle of Zion and everyone playing a huge part of it. It does go on for a long time. It is a nice practical of miniatures, CGI, and of course principal photography, but it's a very well done edge of your seat action scene. The APUs, I like how they're used here just as much as they were in Avatar. And then just the Battle of Zion with the Sentinels swarming ahead, 1,000 Sentinels attacking the humans of Zion. The APUs are fighting, the people with the guns are just trying to destroy the dock and the machine dock. I love that. I think that's a lot of fun to watch. Trinity and Neo working together to get to the machine sighting. It's exciting. It's awesome. It's badass. It's great visually aesthetic. But at the same time, it's very heartbreaking because you know what's going to happen to these two characters. Because in a way, this is a Shakespearean love story where they meet each other, they fall in love, and they die together. Basically Romeo and Juliet, except the sci-fi version of Romeo and Juliet. So in a lot of ways that does play into a big ambitious idea, and I do appreciate what they're going for there. Also, I will say the cinematography in the movie is a visually great looking film from a cinematography aspect, from the production design with the Matrix and the real world. It's a lot of fun to see. The acting is still good on everyone's part. Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Jada Pinkett Smith, even the Merovingian with his scene, which made me do this because I still hold him responsible for what he did for capturing Neo and putting him in this whole trance at the beginning of the movie. Action scenes are still a lot of fun. The upside down fight is very chaotic, very crazy. With Tetsujin played by Don Davis and Juno Reactor, which is a lot of fun to watch. Also, I do love how the whole symbolism come into place. When humanity, with the three things, humanity comes into play and combines all three things together. Morpheus is knowledge, Neo is the action, and Trinity is the love. So all three of these things come in harmony to basically finish off this war. And that's how, and when you look at the problem, that's how the war can truly really end. And end all the wars, and destroy the Matrix, and reboot it, end the enslavement, end the lies, start fresh and anew. The philosophy, while it's a little heavy-handed with the symbolism, the philosophy is still very powerful. It has been very consistent throughout the entire trilogy, and Neo is indeed the chosen one. He's fulfilled his prophecy. Morpheus's prophecy is fulfilled. And I love the musical score in this movie. The musical score is awesome, is badass, is epic. And it does take a massive risk, especially when we get into probably my favorite part of this movie, when it comes to the final showdown between Neo and Agent Smith, out in the rain. Obviously, I love this fight because it has something to do with water and something to do with rain, because I am a water bug. But seeing these two godlike humans is basically a Dragon Ball Z fight, an anime fight, and a Superman fight browsed into one, except it's not Superman in fighting this. The fighting is masterfully done with them taking it to each other outside. Yeah, with a bunch of Smiths surrounding. I do love the one Smith when he's like, it's on now, Neo. And then with them just fighting each other, swinging punches with every fist move, and then them just taking it into buildings. Smith, of course, flying around. Neo jumping through a wall. And then this entire final musical score with Neo Dameron is perfect. The way it's edited is beautiful. And just, it's a nice fight with these two. And just, it is awesome. I love that. Love that whole fight. It's fun. You get the high frame rate with the slow motion and the fast motion of them fighting inside, them flying out. It's definitely one of my favorite moments in the movie, right next to the war in Zion, which is insanely chaotic. They still managed to respect our three main characters and some of our other heroes, but mainly with this whole fight. Some people were confused by it, but this is how I look at it. The balancing of opposing forces proves to be ultimately the secret to fighting Smith. Neo doesn't realize this until he's in that corridor, and Smith even tells him, "You have to be able to see it. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. You have to give in." And he looks up at the other Agent Smiths and he realizes he can't fight them all in the fight this time. And it's when the Oracle speaks to Agent Smith and says that line at the beginning of the first movie, which I haven't even mentioned the Oracle this time. The Oracle this time is played by Mary Alice, who is the friend of Gloria Foster, which Mary Alice played the mother in the original Sparkle. And she takes over for Gloria Foster, of course, who passed away in between the making of these movies. And the way they explain it is that the Merovingian gave her a choice, and their choice cost her a whole new appearance. So now that people don't remember who she is because of her reasons to help the Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus. I do like the explanation. It's a nice way of handling it, but it still is a bittersweet thing because you do like Gloria Foster in the first two movies. As I'm saying, it's with the Oracle when Neo realizes in this final fight that he has to stop fighting and let himself be cloned by Agent Smith. So sacrificing himself is the only way. So basically, if one dies, the other dies too. And I love the way Neo sacrificed himself, especially with the music. With the epic music, you know that Neo is going to sacrifice himself because there is no other way to do so. System balances itself out after Neo dies. Smith is dead. And then I love how the machines carry him away at the end as an act of gratitude once peace is restored. war, because the only way the war can end is that Neo makes a deal with the machines. I want peace, but this war has to end. And that's what I definitely like about this whole ending of Revolutions, is that nothing is really over until the war can truly end. And when he makes that deal, the war is over. And then the ending of the movie, I like how they leave it up to interpretation, like, is Neo really dead or not? Some people were frustrated with that. I was not. So I do like how the Oracle says that we might see Neo once again in 18 years, and for what it's worth, I do hope the Matrix Resurrections is pretty much explains this. At the end of the day, do I hate The Matrix Revolutions? No. Is it a fundamentally flawed movie? Yes. With some of his writing decisions bugs me still, with Trinity especially. Some dated CGI, the symbolism a little bit too much. I think The Matrix Revolutions is a good enough ending to the original Matrix trilogy of films that has enough action in it, some very solid performances. It gives a sense of finality to the war between man and the machine, and it ended things on a satisfactory close. Not the ending that you wanted to, but once again, is a very ambitious conclusion. So I will give The Matrix Revolutions a highly recommended. So that was my thoughts on The Matrix Revolutions. In the comment section down below, what did you guys think? Were you disappointed? Were you not? All my social media links are in the description box down below. If you'd like to send money to my Cash App or Chime, you can DM me privately as well. My Amazon wish list is there down below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get notified when new videos like this are up. Be sure to like this video, comment, and share this video, because it does help this video get more views and does help the channel grow. And I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys keep it cool, enjoying the epic taskness.